Did you record?
No, not yet.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So this is the ninth episode, and we had something planned for this episode, but as everybody's aware, there's some big things that happened last week, and plans change. But and we're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about everything that happened last week, some of the fallout, and some of the events that led up to it. So you already know the cast. We got Omar, we got Saheed, we got myself, Nicholas, and we're just gonna get right into it, man. We're gonna be talking about let's call it what it is, the coup, the attempted coup, the insurrection from last week. And I just want to start out by just talking about some of the background of the event and some of the stuff that led up to it. If you did vote for Donald Trump in the first election, I can almost understand why, right? He was probably attractive to a lot of people because he was not a politician, because he was something different, and I can understand that. But this last election, I'm just glad that he lost. And as everyone knows, like the attempted coup, the protest was January 6th. And I guess one of the things you have all these people coming out here to protest, which is their right. It's their First Amendment right. They had the right to march on the city, to show their presence, to make their feelings known. That's great. But what you don't have the right to do, of course, is to basically storm the gates and lay siege to the Capitol building. And one of the things that bothered me the most was the lack of police presence. And so, like, the first thing that I wanted to say is that I find it hard to believe that they weren't able to plan for this when the fact that there was going to be a protest was made very well known. It was very publicized. I even got I even have an article like from my county the day before the rally was set to happen, asking residents to stay at home. So the thing that really struck me was just that lack of police presence. And so, Omar, I'll let y'all, talk about some of that.
Yeah. So at my job, they sent a letter or an email stating to stay away from DC, that they're expected to be a high turnout because of like this protest. So it's really hard. Like, I second you, Nicholas. It's extremely hard to understand why there was no preparation for this at all.
There was a press briefing earlier today. It was like the acting FBI director and one of like the U.S. attorneys, it was the FBI director or something, and the acting U.S. attorney or something like that. So they were talking about one of the police officers that works security in Capitol Hill was actually said there was about 10 to 15 other police officers there that were in on it.
Yeah, and there is video. Yeah, there is video of police officers. There's one taking a selfie.
You guys sent me that one.
There's one like Sean King was on it last week. If you guys
yeah. I mean, there was one I know that was walking some of the people around the building.
Yeah, they said they were walking. They showed videos of some of the cops are with us or on that. They showed one guy just like telling people to come in. They showed people opening the gates.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because not all the cops were in it, because you saw the picture of the black cop, the guy that's being hailed a hero. Protesters are literally chasing him, right, up the stairs, and he's like trying to back him off. And
he led them away.
Yes.
From the other politicians.
Check thing, right, where he saw that the place wasn't secure, and led them the other way. And that's he deserves a Presidential Medal of Freedom Award, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's who we need to honor, right? One thing I want to add to that too is that this crowd that charged the Capitol, that killed a cop, by the way, beat a cop to death with a fire extinguisher, they carry that thin blue line flag, the Blue Lives Matter, right?
Dude, I saw a video of them protesting in front of cops I forgot where in the U.S. this was, but they took the flag, they were burning it, they were stepping on it, and they're all shouting at the cops like, we supported you," and and
Yeah.
it's just like, you know,
It's
Very
total
ironic
180.
that the very people who were shouting out Blue Lives Matter in the
Yep.
face of the Black Lives Matter
Yeah.
protests end up
Yeah.
fighting the cops that they say that
and
they
killed a
support
cop.
or whatever.
Killed a cop. We have to remember
Yeah.
they killed
Yeah.
a cop, right?
Yeah.
That's only the fourth time in history they said that that's happened. I think either the fourth time or it's the first time in like 200 years or something like that.
No, I think what you're talking about is the first time since the War of 1812 that the Capitol was breached.
No,
Yes.
it's actually secured. Yeah, that too. But what I'm referring
Yes.
to is the amount of Capitol Hill police officers that were actually killed on duty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I also want to add one more thing to that with like people who like things do like would matter. You heard the saying, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything,
Yeah,
right?
love
They
that.
clearly don't stand for anything, right? All of their slogans are just counter slogans. They're not their belief, right? So we say Black Lives Matter because it means something, right? Not matters more, but just matters, simply matters. And they have a problem with that. They kind of with all lives matter or blue lives matter. And clearly that doesn't matter to them, right? Because again, they killed a cop, right? They killed a cop. They attacked police, right? So your counter slogans aren't stances. They're just that, counter slogans, because you don't have legitimate reasons to counter act against Black Lives Matter. So you have to come up with a counter slogan that sounds good, that is just self-preservance, right? Just makes yourself feel good, right? Because saying that you're racist sounds bad, so you just want to make up some other crap. But like, I saw a video today.
What? I got black friends. Well, I'm not racist.
Exactly, crap like that, right? Oh my God, you just see some of the posts I have to deal with today. I mean, this past week. I'll tell you about one of it if we have time. But yeah, it just shows that the whole self-preservance things about like of just them just counteracting like Black Lives Matter, which is just to empower Black people, and you're just using it to belittle. And you have the opportunity to defend cops, to show that you're on the side of the cops, and you kill the cop. And it's frustrating, it's angry. And one of the points I was going to make too was that I saw like a post on Instagram about the guy going towards like different Blue Lives Matter posts like on the web and on Instagram to seeing if there's anybody honoring the cop that was killed, right? No one's honoring the cop that's killed, right? No one's honoring the cops that defend the Capitol. So it just shows just how much hypocrisy they have. So
I disagree with you a little bit on one thing. Sorry, Nicholas. And that's, they do stand for something. They do agree. They do believe in one thing, and that's they only believe in Trump, and that's why we call it Trumpism, right? And that's the difference between followers and fanatics. And these are fanatics we're talking about, and that's why it's so scary. That's why, and we're gonna actually get to this. I'm going to bring up some points in a little bit when we get to the topic, but there's a reason why, why his supporters, or whatever you want to call them, change from followers to fanatics.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So getting back to the police thing though, real quick, like, I don't know if you guys were like really following everything as it happened on CNN or not, or whatever news outlet that you use, but just how shocked were you to see that it was so easy for them to breach the Capitol building, right? Like,
Crazy.
When I go back and look at pictures of the Black Lives Matter protests, you see a lot more armed soldiers out there lining the steps of the Capitol, lining the streets, what have you, to try to keep people, in place or whatnot. And then in here, you just have a situation where it's just a few Capitol police officers. It seemed like, they had a very thin line between the protesters and the building. Obviously, that line got breached. And then once they got inside, you had, obviously the members of Congress were in there counting up the electoral votes to certify the election of Joe Biden. But
along with Kamala Harris, who's in there.
Yes, but it just seemed like, not a lot of security in the building, at least from what I saw, and I saw like the pictures of like the Secret Service agents and some of the other folks in there like defending like the Congressmen and women, and they had barricaded the doors. But it's like other than that, I didn't really see like a security presence.
So why did
I was told to leave?
Go ahead, Omar.
Sorry. No, I was gonna say, like I was having a conversation on Facebook recently, and it was like, the point was, why is race matter? It's not a race issue, and it is a race issue. And why is it a race issue? Actually, my response was, it's a lot of things. Race is one of them. But the problem is because it's people like us who are minorities that these double standards, they hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't the same rules apply? Yes, there was an attack on Capitol Hill. That's messed up. But yes, racism is a huge issue because, I do believe this was an inside job, like, people supporting Trump, we're on the inside. I think it's very clear, just waiting for the proof to come out. But it's just, there's, as you said, it's clear, how the police, acted during the Black Lives Matter protests, the words, the terminology that Trump used, explicitly inciting his fanatical, followers to, like encouraging violence against the protesters.
Right, and there are actually people out there trying to say that he didn't incite the riot, but if you look at the quotes, I mean, he's literally saying you won't get it from being weak. This was stolen from us. You have to get it back using strength.
So I want to get into that.
Well, before we get into that, I kind of want to talk with what Omar is saying. So, just some news: 2 Capitol officers suspended. About 17 of them are under investigation. So, it's just an inside job. Like, who knew what? We don't know. About your comments about race, absolutely, it's about race. Anyone who doesn't think about it's a race is, again, blind, right? Just from what I've seen, and Trevor Noah, The Daily Show, put up something about a white supremacist and how they try to undermine the value of race, right? Mm-hmm. And just keep in mind, there was a noose hung out on like the Capitol front, and there was a guy with a Confederate flag walking around the Capitol, right? If you don't think it's about race, it is definitely about race. And lastly, it's a little bit to the counterpoint of like what you were saying earlier, Omar. Again, I'll push back a little bit and say I don't think these guys stand for anything, right? They're Trumpism, sure, I agree with you there, but Trump is just a figurehead, right? They'll go for anybody that will blow that dog whistle of racism for them, right? So
that's a good point. I don't disagree.
Yeah. So I think that what they do is like all their arguments are counter arguments. Again, they don't stand for actually anything, right? Because if they're actually for the cops, what they did is inexcusable. I mean, I think I saw like a Jesus Saves Us All flag right there.
It's keep America white again. That's what the real underlying, meaning behind his whole presidency is.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm tired of coddling these people. I really am tired of coddling these people. Like, I got in an argument with a former teacher.
I saw that.
Talking about extremes on both sides. And he wants to talk about how, well, I like everyone and I support people. And I don't care who you vote for to be my friend. I'm like, who cares about you right now? Well, why are you making this about you? Yeah. Again, this self-preservation BS, right? When 9/11 happened, right? Trust me, me and you, Omar, didn't get the chance to be all, well, we love all people and this and this and da da da. Like, how many times do you have to hear like some right-wing pundit talk about, well, Muslims don't do enough to condemn terrorism?
I'm gonna get into that soon.
How often do we hear that, right? And here are these guys trying to both sides. Well, he didn't really incite a riot. Like they're coddled, right? Yeah. And I'm just tired of just dealing with them. But yeah.
Well, I think the other thing too, like perception is everything, right? So like when you had the terrorist attacks and everything, they kind of used that to unite the country and find a common enemy.
You
right?
mean those
They're
fine
like,
gentlemen from the Middle East, right?
don't even get me started on that, man. That's just that
Oh
that
boy.
sort of double talk, that rhetoric is I'm just so sick and tired of it. Like it started out with the tiki tortures in Charlottesville, and it's continued and repeated until this point now.
Yeah, we keep coddling these guys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we keep coddling them, like the tiki tortures in Charlottesville. Good and bad people on both sides.
Yeah.
That was the reasoning, right? And that's what they used to kind of tell themselves that, well, the left is just as bad. Antifa. I mean, what about Antifa thugs, right? Like, how many did Antifa thugs try to like kidnap the governor recently of Michigan? Remember that story point?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about with the perception thing, right? Yeah. So, Antifa, if that's what you want to call it, again, that's just another term that they're using to try to lump everybody together. But the Black Lives Matter protests and some of these other people, like, they want the country to perceive them as something bad, as something as like, oh, you're only Black people matter now. So what about everybody else? Oh, it's so hard to be white in the country now. That's not the point. The point has always been to have the majority, which is mostly white, finally recognize the minority and to celebrate what it takes to be a minority here, what it means to be a minority here, and understand that. It's not about who you're friends with. It's not about, hey, I shook hands with a Black guy the other day, I'm not racist. It's not about that. It's, do you respect someone else's, can you respect someone else's culture and beliefs? And that's what disgusted me about what they try to do with the BLM protests, because when those people come together, they try to march. I mean, yes, there's a lot of anger too. Like, it was absolutely wrong to destroy the stores and stuff like that.
Yes.
But immediately, as soon as there was some property damage, oh, they're animals. These are these villainous people. But then you have, this group here, they freaking tried to stage a coup on the entire country, and they're trying to just kind of throw the racist angle under the rug.
We're talking about Capitol Hill, which is, I guess you can call it like the center of American democracy, while there's politicians, people from Congress that are in there counting votes for the election process, for the president. How do you compare, causing a ruckus in the streets and destroying stores, as you said, which is wrong. I was never for that from the get-go. Yeah. Versus the central part of our government, the attack on that. How do you compare? And they got inside, they had to, I didn't even know what happened to Kamala Harris. I mean, I was looking for stories, and I was like, holy crap, what's going on? Is she all right? And I guess they escorted her out first or something. I don't know, but that's scary. I was the fact that, they came in with like handcuffs and zip ties and stuff like that.
They were ready.
Shows you their intentions.
They were ready.
They were ready.
They were organized
immediately.
They were organized.
Yeah. So Omar, I use this phrase a lot, and you kind of joke with me a little bit every time I use it, because I say this all the time. And I think for as long as you know me, I've pretty much said the phrase.
Yeah.
False equivalency, right? We saw it, like we kind of had a discussion on Facebook with someone the other day, right, where they tried to compare this to the Baltimore riots, right? And there's no comparison. Or how we like to compare right-wing extremism with left-wing extremism, right? Like we try to compare what we saw here with Antifa, right? They know this stuff is bad. They know just how radical it is. And instead of them wanting to confront it, they want to make another bigger guy seem equal and then call themselves in the middle, right?
Yeah.
If a grown man is punching a little kid and you're like not doing anything, you're in the middle, or even saying maybe the kid did something wrong to get punched like that.
Thank you. That is a great example.
Like you're not in the middle, right? You're
True.
not in the middle, right? So again, I'm afraid you'll probably hear me say a lot again, self-preservationists, right? Want to claim that they're in the middle, that like everyone else is radical, and that I don't care. Like I have Black friends and this and this and that, and I love you and whatever. To Nicholas's point about people not caring, it's not about like race, but do you care about what it is to be a person of color in America, I would go a step further and say, do you empathize, right, with a person of color above what they go through? Like to get to where we've gotten today, right? And I would say we're all even somewhat privileged, right? We both all have our parents and family like in check, and a lot of people, and even us, we've had our struggles, right? Do you empathize that our paths to get to where we are today may be different than yours simply because of the color of our skin, simply
Well,
because
they
of our
can't.
name,
They
right?
can't comprehend that. They can't understand it.
Or do they
That's the
want to
problem.
try to comprehend that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to just say like they, like everybody, but it's just there's just people out there who uh, either they haven't had to try to understand it.
Mm.
There are people out there that just don't want to understand it,
there you go.
and there are people out there that just hate you.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to just say like they, like all
Well,
people are, bad or ignorant or whatever. It's just there's certain groups out there, and
yeah,
it
so
really comes in down to like how we're educating ourselves too. And
yeah, let me elaborate a little bit. Let me elaborate a little bit more. So, some of my closest friends, like, I think I told you about how, like, I'm not really talking with like, I'm not super communicative with like a group of like my gym mates because of like the thing that's happened, right? But there are a couple of these guys that I do talk to, and it's great because I'm not just their black friend, right? I'm someone that they care about and they empathize, right? I can when I know I when I know I talk to them, I know that certain subjects aren't off limits, and that's kind of how I know with versus other people where I know I can't talk about race or here and that, right? And I don't want. I mean, in these trying times, like when you're at work, you can't really. There are certain things you can't talk about, and I mean that's fair. It's the office, but I definitely don't want that to be around my friends, right? Like as of right now, with so much going on, with so much emotion and just me just trying to sort out how I'm feeling with that, whatnot. So I definitely want to hang around with people that can empathize with me, and not just. And I definitely don't want to be that black friend, that token where they can say, "Oh, I'm cool. I mean, I'm friends with the black guy. Look at my friend over here, right?" So I definitely don't want to give that to somebody. Um, yeah, but there are definitely people that have stepped up. I mean, even I saw a couple former Trump supporters come out and condemn, and that's what we need. We definitely need. They won't like this right wing extremist group. They won't listen to us, right? As people of color, they will only listen to people of their same color, right? So we definitely need more allies, more people to step
I don't
up.
know. I don't think you can battle ignorance like that through, like that. I don't know, because ignorance
Well,
is literally just you're ignoring rationale, right?
Where I got that logic from is from a video that Trevor Noah posted up that he was talking to a formal white nationalist, right?
Mm.
And saying that it's going to take other white nationalists, someone with the same skin color, that's the only way they'll convince them, right? You're right about ignorance, right? It's tough to do that. When Trump was elected, I tried to understand the concept of where these guys are coming from, and we talked about cognitive dissonance and whatnot. Um, and one of the counter reactions is to try to get somebody to get on your side, is to try to relate to someone in some way, shape, or form. There's not much I can relate to someone who's a pro-Trump supporter now, like someone who
Yeah, no, absolutely.
like I
I
can't really do
agree.
that.
So
But someone who's of that same color might. So, and that's
yeah.
kind of why we need allies. So,
So I think this would actually be a good setup. Our next topic, Nicholas, if you want to introduce us to that, because I have actually some points I wanted to hit in like a kind of like a timeline, which really, well, I think paint the overarching picture really well with what we're all trying to say.
You can go ahead because I think you might be going somewhere that I had something different on my
Okay.
notes, so you might be going somewhere different. Go ahead.
All right. So, basically, we've been hearing a lot about people, saying that it was, Antifa responsible for, and, for the attack on Capitol Hill because that happened on like one side of the building, and the other side of the building is where the actual protest was, which is all BS because, I mean, just looking at like, pictures from like surveillance footage and, videos from other people, I mean, these people that are breaking in were like fully dressed in like pro-Trump garb, tattoos and stuff like that. You're telling me there's Antifa supporters, went and got tattoos for this? Like,
the guy said Antifa supporters dressed up as Trump supporters to to charge the Capitol. They're actually Antifa supporters, not Trump supporters.
Which again doesn't even make sense because why would they want to stop Biden from winning the presidency when Trump has already lost?
To make pro-Trump supporters look bad.
So first of all, like, even if that's true, how do you know? Like, it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
It's impossible.
It's so stupid.
I don't even want to acknowledge that argument.
At the time of day.
Yeah. I don't mean to really get into that as a topic, right? But I just wanted to bring that up. So basically what I did want to get into is why the attack shouldn't be a surprise and why most of us saw this coming.
Okay, I was about to say that, but it sounded like you was about to go somewhere else. But yeah, that's what I was about to ask next.
So basically, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to speak a little bit fast now, right? Because there's a lot of points that I wrote down. I just want to hit. June 6th, 2015. That's the day Trump first announced his bid for presidency. All right. So in his very first public speech that he gave, he accused Mexicans that were crossing our borders of being rapists, druggies, and criminals. Mind you, this is his first speech after, like, as he announces his bid publicly for presidency. And then, yeah, he did say some of them are good people, but, it's still a huge generalization, and it began sowing the seeds of animosity in his supporters, right? So, well, what happened? Just 2 months later, in August 19th, 2015, two brothers from Boston who were invoking Trump's name after getting arrested. They basically peed on a Mexican-American homeless guy, and they beat him with like a steel rod. And so when the police, arrested them, they were like, one of the brothers was like, Trump was right. And by the way, quote, Trump was right. All of these illegals need to be deported. In response to that, what did Trump do? He said these two brothers were passionate. This is just 2 months. There's a connection. Just 2 months. All right. I'm not saying stuff like this doesn't happen, but they literally chose Trump's name. All right. So again, 3 months later, November 21st, 2015, at a rally in Birmingham, Alabama, Trump demanded that black activist Mercutio, forgive me if I say his name wrong, Mercutio Southall Jr. After he yelled "Black Lives Matter," he asked his followers to remove him. He was like, he said, "Get him the hell out of here, throw him out." That's what Trump said. So what did his followers do? This is on video. They start punching him and kicking him. Mm-hmm. He was inciting violence towards someone that disagreed with him at his rally.
Can I add to that too? So wasn't there more where he was talking about the cops used to be not as nice and you should just beat them up and whatnot as well? Was that rally as well? There was a rally where he was talking about the cops used to be much tougher on our criminals. Right?
I don't know. I don't recall that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Okay. So that was toward the end of 2015, right? That was the year he announced his bid for presidency. So literally, just like in the beginning of 2016, January 8th, basically Trump was just, he's continuing to lead his followers into threatening and or beating up protesters at his rallies, even if they stood there silently. So on January 8th, a woman by the name of Rose Hamid, she a 56-year-old Muslim lady, she was escorted out of his rally after she stood there silently in protest. Silently. She was wearing a t-shirt. It was a sky blue color t-shirt that said, "Salam, I come in peace."
Wow.
And so basically what did she do? She was like, actually, let me take a quick step back. Before this is when Trump was saying, he suggested the U.S. should scrutinize mosques, and that any newly arrived immigrants into the U.S. from like Muslim countries, or Muslims, I guess I should say, um, that they should all be scrutinized. And then he said Syrian refugees are, most of them or many of them are terrorists or associated with ISIS, and called for a total and complete lockdown, shutdown of Muslims.
That's when he did the Muslim ban,
entering
right?
the U.S. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
well, that was a little bit after that, but that's kind of what
was
was
after he got
leading into
elected, right? Like a couple months into his first term.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this,
Yeah. Well, he
sorry.
wasn't even inaugurated in office yet
Wow.
Yeah.
when this happened.
So this brings up something for me because, and I think it's something that lawmakers really need to take a look at, is the idea of the executive order, right? It's been, at least from what I know, it's pretty rare for the president to issue an executive order in the manner that this president has. I know President Obama issued a couple, but it seemed like
a couple, and the right wing conspiracy is like, right wingers criticizing for it, saying like he's a dictator in chief, too many executive orders, and then Trump just blows that out of the water. But yeah.
Right. And so I think it just seemed like this president, just the way he used the presidential powers, I think is just unprecedented. And these executive orders, I think, it almost seemed like he was just kind of going around the process. And then that's something that I just hope that, again, this is a country, again, I mean, as much as people don't believe it, or, it's still like the people's country. Right. Mm-hmm. So, if there's something that you as a voter feel like the government isn't doing or should be doing, get in contact with your congressman, or, make some noise. Don't go siege the Capitol, you know what I mean? But I think if you get enough, petitions and things like that, I'm more that type of action than what we saw last week.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of things though. So executive orders are still subject to the courts, right? Yeah. So a federal judge, and this happened a few times with Obama, would undermine an executive order. That actually happened with Trump as well. One thing to be mindful of is that's why they stacked the courts, right? So Mitch McConnell stacking the courts with a lot of conservative judges. Now, mind you, a lot of the conservative judges threw out Trump's attempt to circumvent the election by saying it's voter fraud when they have no evidence, and we're grateful for that. But I mean, Omar, I think me and you mentioned this. What if Trump was actually smart, right? Maybe what could he have done to?
He is. He is smart, genius. And that's the picture I'm actually painting here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Or what he has a particular set of skills, but I mean, it's that's the truth, man. He knows how to market himself.
So audience. Hold your thought until I'm finished.
Okay.
And then let me paint the picture that I'm trying to paint, right? Sure. So we talked about the day he was, he announced his bid, and he called out Mexicans. Right. 2 months later, the two brothers from Boston, basically repeated what he said and beat up a Mexican American guy. Right. A couple months later again, right, you have a Muslim woman who's silently protesting at one of his rallies, and she's like, so that's actually where we left off. So as she's being escorted out, everyone's shouting at her, calling her derogatory names. And one guy is like, get out. Do you have a bomb? Do you have a bomb? Do you have a bomb? Right. And she's there literally wearing a sky blue shirt, a 56-year-old, almost 60-year-old woman saying, Salam, I come in peace. Silently protesting alone. She wasn't even there with a group. All right. And then so that's pretty much, just everything else that kept happening in 2016. I'm not going to, go through this, play by play of every couple months. There's just too much stuff, right? So it just kept getting worse. 2016. Fast forward to 2017. White supremacists. This is the year that they really, really became much more emboldened to the fact where they're able to walk outside and protest publicly. Where now it's an everyday thing, sadly. You see, Proud Boys or whatever outside, and it's just like, oh, this is happening again, right? So this is 2017 is the year that really started really solidifying. So again, Trump failed to condemn the white supremacists and nationalist groups. This is when the Charlottesville stuff happened. He began a more aggressive attack on the media, which again, I'm not a fan of a lot of media as well. All right. But how he did it, this is to his credit, which, again, I'm not really giving him credit, where he said everyone that disagreed with him was fake news. And he knows how to make headlines. He knows how to make slogans. That's his thing. As a CEO, yes, he's bankrupted before, whatever. At the end of the day, he's still a billionaire, right? So, he's the mastermind of selling ideas and getting people to follow him. So fake news, it became a slogan. So what did that do? That gave him the power to say whatever it is he wanted to say, and his fanatical followers would simply disregard anything that any media source said against him. So I feel like this is where that transition really started going, from where his followers began turning into diehard crazed fanatics. And that's my opinion, right? So
Yeah.
September of that year, Colin Kaepernick, that's where Trump attacked him, right? Very relevant for today's conversation, right?
Yeah.
Where Colin Kaepernick took a knee and protested the national anthem. And what did Trump say? He said, get that son of a bitch off the field right now. Out. He's fired. He's fired. That is what he said for taking a knee.
Yeah. Well, he also called NFL players sons of a bitches for taking knees as well.
Yeah,
So
and
we talked about
afterward,
that.
right. Yeah.
But like a lot of what you're saying is Trump just the term. Have you heard the term dog whistle or racist? Right.
Yeah, hold that thought, Saeed. Hold that thought. I got a couple more points, and then what
Sure.
you're going to say is going to become really relevant.
Okay.
All right. Just a couple months left until 2018. 2018. I'm sorry. 2018. So same thing. Trump still didn't condemn white nationalists, right, or white supremacists. This is where I start bringing numbers. I love discussing numbers. Hate crimes towards minorities increased by 226%. So this is according to the FBI, by the way. So this is a number that people can look up. So mainly toward Muslims at this point, that increased by 5% in 2016, which was his first year in office, and it went up 17% in 2017. In 2018, hate crimes reached a 16-year high, and then that also included a significant rise in violence against Latino Americans. All right, so big fast forward. I'm going to skip the year 2020. Right, there's a lot of stuff. Again, everything just kept getting worse. It was the same stuff. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. His fanatical followers just kept, everything just became normal to them, right? So a big fast forward to 2020, right, where the Black Lives Matter movement really took off, and Trump explicitly condoned violence against the protesters, right? This is a point we were getting into earlier in this conversation. Asian Americans, they began facing increased amounts of violence because of COVID after Trump called it the Chinese flu or the Chinese virus, right? Again, his history of constantly blaming minorities for all of the issues that the U.S. has, while failing to call out white supremacist groups and domestic terrorism. So every single year, it was the same stuff that just got worse and worse, like I've been saying. But when you put it in kind of like a sequence of timeline, it paints a much clearer picture, just how he created his fanatical following, his rallies, his tweets, his speeches, his failure to condemn white domestic terrorists. And they all contributed to, all those reasons contributed to them believing him to be some kind of messiah and to keep America white again by alienating all minorities. So what did Trump do? Is he really racist? I don't know. He has, a lot of stuff that he's done that has seemed racist. I think he knew everything that he was doing. I think he targeted a specific population of the US that he knew was there, a racist population, and that created this fanatical support for him, right? And everything he had a plan. And when you lay it out like this, right, And you look at every couple of months as these things were happening, literally, he was brainwashing his followers to be like people that would give their lives for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm going to end off. And Sahid, you know, I'm sorry that was a long spiel.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I just wanted to paint that big picture, right? And I think that's the thing, that I feel like he knew exactly what he was doing, and for that, I say that I don't agree with him. Yes, he's stupid, but he was smart enough, he was intelligent enough to know what he was doing.
I would like to counter that. I don't know, Nicholas, did you want to kind of come in? Because I have a lot to say. I'll try to be as brief as I can, though.
So, I mean, I'll keep it short. So basically, I think what Omar did was establish, you know, a pattern of events, right? And that basically shows you like why this attack wasn't a surprise, right? I mean, everything kind of just building up on top of itself until it reaches this climax, which is the, you know, attempted siege on the Capitol. And you even have reports now of an attempted similar protests in the capitals of all the states now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not really surprised. What bothers me, you know, I hate just saying like it's, you know, it's Trump, you know, we're just talking about like Trump. I like to talk about like the people themselves. Like all he did was really cater to and wake up a sleeping giant, really, right? I mean, I think it's a group of people who have felt marginalized for some time, given the direction of the country, right? You had a black president. I mean, and it seemed like America was finally becoming what it was written to be, like in the Constitution and in the Declaration. And
all people,
right? You had a group of people who were really angered by that, and then you have someone who catered to them.
Yeah.
So, no surprise, you know, by the attack, and you know, I just hope that this is why, you know, I can't wait till we get to it, but this is why that pattern, that the speeches that were given, this is why we need to impeach, like immediately. You know,
they need to invoke the 25th. Like seriously, like
I think that's a stretch.
It is a stretch. It's definitely a stretch.
Because that means if you say someone's unfit, then you're calling in their mental state. He has all his mental faculties.
Yeah, Pence already said he's not for that.
I would disagree with that, but I agree that it's a stretch simply because a lot of these cabinet members left, resigned instead of staying there, and they stayed with him this long. If they're loyal this long, it's very unlikely that they'll go and like try to usurp him. So I do want to hit on one of Nicholas's point, not to talk about Trump, but it's people. I want to tell a quick story. When I lived in Monroe, Louisiana, at one of my jobs, I remember, and I think Obama was president. I remember like some of my coworkers complaining just about the government, and they said, "Yeah, this is bad. What we really need to do is take our guns and take back the government." So I definitely remember that conversation happening 10 years ago before Trump. So Trump is just the catalyst. Again, he's the guy that's the dog whistle to racist, right? Like he blows the whistle, like Omar, you're pointing out, he says these things, and then they react, right?
So he knew what he was doing. He knew his target audience. Yeah, and he catered to them.
I do argue his mental state. There have been reports
for sure
that in the White House that his mental state has just been deteriorating, especially since the attack on the Capitol, where he was actually very gleefully, like he was more concerned about like them flying Trump flags and actually protecting his people.
I wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think there's anything wrong with that man mentally.
I would also say this. I would also argue that he's a genius, right? Is he successful? Sure. Just understand like his history, his success, his billions come from stolen money of his father.
He's a psychotic genius, and they often go hand in hand with each other.
I'm not going to give him the genius label. I'm sorry. I'm not. Like, I don't like Elon Musk, but he is a genius, right? Bill Gates is a genius, right? I'm not giving Trump the genius label. He is a one-trick pony, right? And it's a hell of a trick. right? It works every time, right? He's boisterous, he's loud, he captivates a certain type of person, an individual, and like it convinces people, right? So he's a one-trick pony, and he's really good at like just captivating that audience. Um, yeah, just so many just thoughts and just points of anger, like of how we've let this happen and get so far. Um, but yeah,
It's Hitler. It's Hitler 2020. That's all that it is. And I've tried to make that comparison, like for example, like on my Facebook, right? And I've had people who are like anti-Trump, like disagree with me, like saying, that's a stretch. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Not really.
I think they only say that just because of the atrocities that Hitler had
Yeah.
the Nazis commit, but
no, that's true. That's true.
The mindset,
the rise to power.
And the rise is I mean,
it's identical.
Yeah, it's them blaming the current state of the country on a group of people, right?
Yeah, right.
When Germany lost World War I, they blamed it on the Jews, right? When and in America, we're blaming our problems on minorities. I do want to. There's one thing I forgot to mention. So I don't know if this is an actual real quote from Martin Luther King. It was in Selma, though. Just going to paraphrase, is that in the movie Selma, I tried to find this quote in real life and I couldn't find it. But King in the movie, Dr. Martin Luther King in the movie, said that like the white man, paraphrasing, has been lied to, right? The poor white man's been lied to, saying that their whiteness is superior to blackness, right? But we know the truth, right? That they're being lied to, these rich white guys, to the Trump type of people, right? I mean, if you look at the kind of people that attack the Capitol, a lot of these guys are poor white people, right? So it's so easy to kind of blame someone else for your problems when you don't have much for yourself.
Yeah.
And
I almost made that point earlier.
Yeah, and they don't know that their real enemy, if they were to get on the side, like things that help Black people helps them as well, right? Healthcare helps them as well. Here's a little bit more radical approach. UBI, Universal Basic Income, right? Helps them as well, right? Not to get too much of a political like debate here, but they're so focused on the color of skin, right? And there are even reports that says that they feel like they've been more victimized by race for being white than what a person of color has, and that's just factually inaccurate, right?
That's what I'm saying before. Like they're being forced to recognize, just minority culture, minorities, ascending in society. I mean, and they don't like that.
I mean, and even with us ascending in a society as a whole, right? Even though African Americans only make up 12% of the population, they make up majority of the.
Really, it's only 12%.
Only 12%, maybe 13%.
Holy crap!
But make up 33% of the prison population. And by the way, the United States prison population is the highest population in the world.
In the world,
more incarcerated people in the United States than China does. That has 1 billion people.
That's crazy.
So, and most of those people are Black, and the second most are Hispanic. Right?
And actually, piggybacking on the incarceration point, I actually read an article the other day. A Black security guard, made the news for defending herself. She was in the midst of, mob of protesters. They were like, I think I don't know what building she worked at or whatnot, but they were like trying to get her keys, her ID. They were, pushing her, shoving her or whatever. And this woman hits her on the shoulder or something like that. She turns around, decks her in the face. That security guard has now lost their job and is facing criminal charges, I guess for assault, but for simply defending himself.
I know you're talking about. Yeah. I was just reading that earlier today.
So I just find it very interesting that, they're quick to move on her. And then, it seems like, even though I know a lot of people aren't satisfied with the level of arrest and police involvement in the what happened last week, it just seems interesting that, they, lose your job, criminal charges because you defend yourself against these people. But the people who are taking these actions, we have to find them, and, we have to do this and that. And, nobody really got arrested on site. They were just told to go home. Things.
They are different groups of people too, though, right? Because the Capitol Police, right? Those are the people basically that fired her. And what I'm more curious about is FBI knew in advance that there were threats.
Yeah.
So why were the right precautions not taken, right? We have the National Guard or National Guard can't just move on their own, right? They have to be, they have the orders, has to go down the totem pole, right?
Yeah. The president
but then,
has to sign that, and he's
yes.
the leader of the National Guard.
Well, what happened? Mark Esper, right, who was mysteriously suddenly just fired in, I think it was November, was a former Secretary of Defense, a SecDef, and then who took his place? It was, a Trump loyalist. And you have, Secretary of Defense. Well, who's going to send out the National Guard? Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of questionable things up in the air. I do agree that the FBI is doing what they can right now. I don't think that the FBI is really, personally, I don't think they're really involved with this pro-Trump conspiracy stuff. But I do think,
they're not going to do that. But a lot of people.
Capitol Hill Police, though, I don't know about that. I think that's shady stuff.
Yeah, I do. Can I make a quick correction too? So, just because I want to give honest, factual information. So about the prison, statistics that I said earlier, I'm not sure if those percentages are right, but just looking at the Pew Research numbers right now, so the gap between black and white prison population is slimming. But blacks, so just looking at these numbers around, there's still 475,000 to 336,000. So that's from numbers between 2007 and 2017. So there's still more blacks in prison than white.
Is nuts.
And we can definitely get into that in another episode. And I definitely, whoever's watching, go watch the 13th Amendment documentary on Netflix. You hear all about the prison complex and why that's had such a terrible effect on minority neighborhoods. What I did want to do, though, is move into the social media response to the events. And I don't know about you guys, you know what I mean, but like my Instagram, Facebook, I don't even bother checking Twitter because that's a lot of crazy. It's just too much for me to keep up with. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of memes, all this other stuff going on, a lot of debates raging on social media between, people on both sides of the fence as far as what's going on in the state of the country. One thing I do want to condemn, though, is the memes depicting the woman who got shot. There's been just some terrible things out there, and I just don't think that's necessary. Like one thing that we should never celebrate is loss of life, no matter how terrible the person is. I'd much rather see her alive and having to deal with the consequences of her actions than just being shot that way. So I definitely don't condone those memes.
I agree. Her family was shocked. Her parents, they're like, we don't even know why she did it. Her son, I think he was like a teenager or something, was the same thing, it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
But it's crazy. And then at the same time, it's expected, right? I mean, you go to that building with bad intentions, bad things are going to happen, One thing that I only engaged in one debate online. It's a waste of time. I mean, for anybody who's out there trying to debate anybody online, it's a waste of time. Don't waste your time. You're never going to change anybody's mind, right? People feel how they feel. You are not going to be the one to change anybody's mind.
I know this, and I still debate people online all the time. I can't help it.
What
you're saying
really,
is facts, but I can't.
Yeah, but what really got me is, okay, you have big tech banning Trump. Trump has been banned from Instagram. He's been banned from Twitter, all the social platforms. You have Google and Apple essentially removing Parler from their app stores. And I guess what I think those actions are validated as far as President Trump is concerned. But how do you guys feel about those companies taking away those platforms, right? Because again, First Amendment, you're supposed to be able to express yourself. So how do you feel about that?
So
Good question.
This is a fair question.
Yeah.
I want to start by a couple of things. Number one, so people who are more concerned about Twitter taking away Trump's platform as opposed to Trump using said platform to start a coup, right? Like, shows your bias, right? He needs to be held accountable, for starters, right? So there are a bunch of like right wing people that came up that said, well, I think Megyn Kelly is one of them that says that, well, you'll get banned from Twitter if you're not woke enough or if you don't believe in like left wing stuff. And I'm like, this guy tried to start a coup.
Yeah.
Right? His mob was yelling, hang Mike Pence. Right? We cannot be, and your response to that with them taking his content down was, but they took us from the First Amendment, whatever. To talk about the First Amendment, it means that you can say what you want, and the government cannot arrest you. Right? The government does not act. The Twitter Parler, they're not government. They're private entities.
Right.
Now, here's a funny thing that like a coworker pointed out to me that makes sense. So earlier in like the year, like Obama tried to make like the internet like a resource. Okay. And mainly it was for ISPs and whatnot, but making like a resource like water, whatever, like people need.
Net neutrality, baby.
Yeah, net neutrality got rid of that, right? Where they wanted to not make it a resource, right? So, but this gives like the private institutions more power. So I wonder, like, if they actually allowed it to be a resource that have more say to saying that this guy deserves to have a platform. Like, I wonder if they kind of shot themselves in the foot by siding with the ISPs and whatnot. So that's
an interesting take on that.
Yeah,
I never even thought about it.
So a coworker like pointed that out to me, and I'm like, that's crazy. It's kind of true. Yeah. So that's just something, but yeah, you need to be held accountable for what you do. Now, the question is, does big tech have too much power? Right? That's definitely a fair question to have. That's beyond the scope of like what's happening. Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, we can have a whole nother topic based on big tech.
We definitely can.
A news came out recently about like Facebook and WhatsApp wanting to share like more information to have that being transported to WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you that this Facebook conglomerate that's going on is about to get broken up like freaking mob.
Yeah, it really is. I was just thinking about that legit 3 hours ago. Same thing. Like Facebook's days are over.
Another point that I want to point out to you too. So I saw this on like Instagram. Someone pointed like the day after, like it was confirmed, and like a day after the riot too, but a day after it was confirmed that the House Democrats like won the House and the Senate, right? That's when a lot of the like tech companies like started banning Trump for his instigating riots. Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, pretty much Spotify banning Trump, and the thought process was like they're doing this just in time when they know House Democrats are going to be like leaders on all of those advisory boards.
Yes,
as well. So,
this goes so well with our next topic.
Yeah. So perfect timing or not? So
yes.
But yeah, you want to go ahead and segue to that next topic?
Sure. So everyone knows 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. And what was something that every Muslim on the face of the earth, especially in the US, had to deal with, right? And that was, why aren't you denouncing terrorism? So
today,
every single Muslim in this country felt discriminated against in one way or another, right? Some directly, some indirectly. You know, you couldn't turn on the TV without feeling like your way of life was being attacked. And it made that the mentality, that how it makes you feel, you know, how it makes you view your surroundings, it completely changes your perspective on your community, on everything. It just makes you feel unsafe, right? It makes you paranoid. So again, if you haven't been in those shoes, you cannot comprehend that. So that still hasn't died down. It's gotten a little bit less because, well, today, you know, Trump's been busy fighting against, you know, the Black American population instead. So, you know, thank you, Nicholas and Zahid. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know, Zahid, you get it either way. So I don't know why I'm thanking you.
God.
You know, Black and Muslim.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But you know,
people's faces over when they found out my name was Sahid. It's always fun.
You mean your name's not Jamal?
Oh my god.
But the thing I want to get into, right, is my main argument is, I don't want to turn this into a religious debate, is the pro-Trump Christians that are asking, you know, that had said for years for Muslims to denounce terrorism. And the crazy thing is, it's like, you know, for everywhere I looked within, you know, my own, like the Muslim community, when I say my own, right, I really mean the Muslim community. Every person, every religious leader, even down to like the quiet individual person that's not really outspoken, everyone spoke out against it, because at one point or another, someone was either, you know, pushed to the edge, or they were kind of forced to, you know, they're put in a position where they had to say, you know, I don't support it. Yet the media consistently and deliberately failed to cover that. Both, you know, CNN, Fox News, ABC, with left-wing, right-wing media, all of them, they all failed to do it. I actually failed to do it is the right. They chose not to do it because it fit this narrative. Until today, this term of terrorist is still, rightfully so, sometimes even in my own head, which is that I'm brown and I'm Muslim, it's still somewhat in my own head. I have to stop myself and correct myself sometimes, that it's very fitting for, you know, like a Middle Eastern or you know, a Muslim, a foreign Muslim, you know, extremist.
Well, I can tell you, everybody that was out in the Capitol last week, I'm calling them domestic terrorists.
Yeah,
straight up.
no, for
like,
sure.
That's what you are. You are a
that's
domestic terrorist, and you should be charged as such.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So for me, so I'm the one Christian on the show. Right? There's extra. I think there's extremists on both sides. You know, and it's unfortunate that here in America, obviously, it's mostly a Christian country. So, you know, Islam is different. Therefore, when someone who is Muslim does something different or something bad, then they will immediately be vilified, and all Muslims will be vilified, just because a lot of people aren't educated on what it means to be a Muslim. You know, and it took some time for me to understand that, hey, like these people who are doing this stuff, you know, like Bin Laden's people and those terrorist people, those are actually, that's an extremist Muslim group. I didn't know there were different, just as in Christianity, you have Baptist, you have Methodist, you have Protestant, you have Catholic. There's, you guys obviously can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, but there's different
sects
of the Muslim community as well. And so, you know, I guess my message is, you know, all it takes is just a little bit of research, man. Just do some reading. You know, don't just take, you know, look at, you know, the news and just say like, oh, the Muslims are coming. Like, don't just do that. Just you know, open up, say like, who is Bin Laden? Who are these people? And find out, like, you know, do a study on Islam and read some of the texts and understanding what the religion is supposed to be about. That way you can understand
kebabs and hookah. That's what we're about. Kebabs and hookah.
But that way you can understand that there are some crazies out there who just as here where you know, some extremists say like, in Jesus' name we do this.
Exactly.
There are people out there who are, in Allah's name, I do this.
Inshallah. right?
Right, exactly. And Nicholas, seriously, thank you for clarifying that. I'm glad you brought that up, right? Like, I have nothing against Christianity at all. And what I said was not an attack or anything whatsoever against Christianity. It was really the pro-Trump Christians, that we're saying Muslims should denounce terrorism, right? When they in today's world, right, cannot condemn the domestic terrorism that's being done in the name of Trump, right? And so it's this big hypocrisy, and it's all these. And to Saeed's point, when he was talking about about the media, and I was saying, they just shift to whatever, where they always just ride with the wave, right? They have their own narrative. They don't really care. I don't know what to expect with Biden as president. In a couple of years, I voted for Biden, but I didn't really vote for Biden. I just voted against Trump. That's how I felt. So I don't really know what to expect from him.
Exactly. I mean, I was going to vote for anybody who wasn't.
I'm happy
I
about
would have
Kamala
voted for a
Harris.
spoon. I would have voted for a spoon.
Yes, I would have voted for a meteor. Just one that wouldn't wipe us out.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Kamala Harris, but anyway, the thing is, my point is, I mean, yeah, I guess that's. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I would say this, and obviously we're not trying to attack Christians, God forbid,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a Christian country, we respect that. But I think the problem is that a lot of people try to, like, these guys. I don't even want to. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to define who's Christian, who's not. But they like to play victim, to be victims here, right? And one of the little victim like wannabes that they're trying to do, or victim blaming or victimization of themselves that they're trying to be, was with Christmas, right? Saying, "Oh, we don't say Christmas anymore. We're trying to take away Christmas or whatever," right? As if you celebrating Christ's birthday, like him being the maleficent guy that he was, like, would actually care if you say Merry Christmas or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, here's the
It's
thing
so
about
silly.
Christmas in general, right? If anything kills Christmas, it's going to be capitalism. Let me tell you that right now. Like you're busy whining that people are saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, while we're running over people to get a new TV.
I say Merry Christmas. I'm just saying, by the way.
I mean, I have no look.
Hey, if I knew what to say to you guys on Eid or whatever, now I would say the same thing to y'all. You know what I mean? I just don't know.
I mean, I have no problem. I have no problem saying Merry Christmas to people. I remember one time when I was in Monroe, Louisiana, I was gonna write on a Christmas card, Merry Xmas, because the card there was no space in the card, and that a little smart, and a little small space, so I wanted to abbreviate, and people just lost it.
Really?
Merry Xmas.
So I thought that literally I thought the X literally was just like a short way of saying Christ.
It is.
Like cross.
It is.
Cross
That's
X.
exactly what it is. Right?
That's just people taking it too
where these
seriously.
guys are. That's exactly the reasoning, right?
Nicholas, control your people, man. What the hell?
Denounce your people.
Hey, you control yours, I'll control mine.
I can't do it. Let's all just become Buddhist.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love everybody.
Hey, look, there are Buddhist extremists that are killing Muslims. In like what is it, like not Bangladesh.
It's in India.
Yeah. No, Burma.
I mean, people are doing things have been doing things in the name of God for eons.
Yes.
I don't expect it to be any different now. I really don't.
And it's all an excuse to kind of go back to Saeed's point. It's all an excuse, right? They use God, they use politics, they use, Trump's name, whatever it is. They just keep using someone's name to justify their anger, this white supremacy, this concept that's built in American culture that needs to go away. Yeah. People talk about make America great again. America was never great. It was always behind, and it was always racial tensions in the U.S. Just because you chose to ignore it doesn't mean that it wasn't there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I would say
when people like us were born in it, and and raised around it, we feel it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the country was built on a racial divide anyway, right? So the moment the Pilgrims landed here, it was genocide on the Native Americans, and then shortly thereafter, they are bringing over Africans and using them as property. So I mean and then we're 3/5 of a person, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it's ingrained in the country's DNA. So
Yes.
it's still, again, even though you have a black president, it's still, that doesn't mean it's gone. It's still there, and that's obviously very obvious today with everything that's going on. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, actually, because of the events, right? Everybody's talking impeachment and invoking the 25th Amendment, which we kind of touched on for a short second, but I want to get on impeachment and why it's important. So initially, I think in an earlier episode, I was talking about how disappointed I was in the impeachment process, because it was like, they're impeaching Donald Trump but nothing happened. He kind of got off, but it was like a big deal because they were impeaching him. Impeachment is actually very important. I did a little bit of research on it, and so there's some things that happen during the impeachment process. So for one, when a president leaves office, there's some benefits to having been a former president, right? You get, I think there's like a travel budget that you get. You get Secret Service for life, and some other things. If you're so if you're impeached and you're removed from office, you get none of that, right? That's one.
Well, let me correct you a little bit, because I got flagged by Facebook on this.
Okay.
So there's impeachment, right? That's just the House passing articles of impeachment.
Yes.
And there's removal of office. So the Senate has to go forward with it. So it's not technically impeachment so much as like removal of or ratification of the articles of impeachment, rather, right?
Yeah, I was getting there. Yeah.
So we have to make sure that's clear, so Facebook doesn't put the not factual tag in.
So the House introduced articles of impeachment this week, and they're supposed to vote on it, I think, tomorrow. But what I want to point out is the fact that when the president is in the process of being impeached, or when he's labeled as being impeached, his powers are suspended.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very important to consider in the process, because I do believe that Trump needs to have his powers suspended until Biden is inaugurated, right? Because you're just not sure what he's going to do next. Today I saw him at the Mexican wall talking about how important the wall, talking about how important the wall was, and how the Biden administration, be careful what you wish for by trying to get this 25th Amendment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as I'm concerned, the sooner we impeach him, the sooner we can stop his activity, the better. And then the other thing is that, once you've been removed from office, after you've been impeached, after the Senate has voted to remove you from office, you can't run again. Yeah. And so my fear is that when, let's say, Trump makes it till the end of his term, great. I don't know if it's a rumor, I don't know if it's fact, but there's been rumblings that, hey, he might just run again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if he runs again, then we start this whole cycle back over again, where we kind of rally the troops and get it going again.
Hey, just really quick, because this is the only thing I have left to say on for now, I guess. But to kind of add on to what you were saying, Nicholas, right? So five points, right? So no lifelong $200,000 a year annual pension, right? That eliminates that. No lifelong Secret Service protection. No lifelong $1 million travel-related expenses, and on top of that, it's called the Former President's Act, I believe. The president's wife, or former president's wife in this case, would get $500,000 a year for her own travel expenses. That's 1.5 mil out of our own taxes, Social Security, $200K annual pension. The $200K is not too much when you distribute that between 320 million Americans, right? But still, as you said, it'll eliminate him from being able to run for presidency again in 2024. And in my opinion, other than taxes and us paying extra taxes or whatever, it finally tells Americans that the president of the United States does in fact have a limitation to his or her power, which is what has failed to happen during Trump's presidency. Is he found almost every single loophole possible, completely fired people regardless of their credentials, and brought in people with no experience, but purely based off loyalty, right?
Yeah.
All
Yep.
signs of a dictator, right? So that there are no checks and balances, and that stuff, we need some work on that. But in anyway, that I don't want to get too much into that, but that will tell the American public that there's a limit to your power.
Well, let me counter that a little bit. So there were tests to his power, but not by the firings, right? So he was able to fire different people in different positions. Even now in like the transition age, he was putting Trump loyalists in like Pentagon positions, right? And kind of getting in the way of the transition process between the transfer of power and whatnot. So, but in some of his his executive orders, he was challenged a little bit, but yeah, I do want to mention it is possible for him to still be impeached after he's in office.
Yeah.
So even if they work on the impeachment now, right? The Senate can still vote till after office. I did hear some reports of like Mitch McConnell not expecting to vote on this until like a couple months later. So I'm with you guys. Like, it's definitely important that we do this. I think there are Republicans want to do this. I don't know how much are willing to do this, right?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's still a lot of Republicans that voted to not certify Biden. 140 Republicans, right? 14 in the Senate, I believe.
Yeah.
Or is it 8? I think it was 8 voted not to ratify. Keep in mind, we need 2/3 of the Senate to approve these articles of impeachment. Right, 2/3. That's a stretch.
So I'm trying to understand too. Like you said, we need 2/3 of the Senate. My understanding is that the latest round of elections, there's a Democratic majority in the Senate now, right? So I feel like that's I feel like 2/3 is probably a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, but there also are an increasing amount of Republicans that are now, especially since the Capitol Hill attack, right?
Yeah.
There's an increasing amount of Republican politicians now that are openly voicing their opinions against Trump.
There are definitely a few, right?
Mitch McConnell, for one of them.
Mitch McConnell,
the main one.
Mitch McConnell said, he wants to damage, Trump. He tried to have him killed, for God's sake. So,
yeah.
How it's not 100 freaking 0 to approve these articles of impeachment? Then
when was the last time you heard a president trash talk his VP, his vice president? When was the last time you ever heard that?
Never. And to put things in perspective too, so throughout history, only 3 presidents have been impeached. None removed from office though. So this might be a first. You would think Nixon might be the first, but he actually resigned. He resigned before being impeached.
No president has been impeached twice though, so Trump will be the first of that to be impeached twice.
Yeah, he'll be the first of many then.
Oh, he's the first of many. But yeah, I would hope so. Even if he leaves office, I would hope they would ratify these articles of impeachment and hopefully put him in jail. I've been reading some.
I don't think that'll happen, but yeah, that would be nice.
I hope so. I've been reading some notes. I won't go too much into this about the investigation to 2016 and Russian influence, and then afterwards of him working with people who he's pardoned recently with Paul Manafort and a slew of other people. Was it Michael Flynn, General Michael Flynn or whatnot, or General Flynn. So yeah, these are bad people. Particularly Paul Manafort is a horrible person. He's blood money. He makes money off of getting people killed, right, in other parts of the world. And he pardoned him, right? That just desperately should show you that this guy needs to go. We need to do what we can to hold people accountable. It's super important that we hold him accountable. I know it's a long shot, but
everybody needs to be held accountable.
Yes.
So it's been an hour and a half.
I knew it was gonna be a long topic. We can go on for hours more still.
Oh, for sure. But I just wanted to go around the mic real quick and get you guys final thoughts on, what happened, like kind of like a so what now type deal, and just get your final thoughts before we wrap up real quick. But Omar, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, national emergency declared in all 50 states from 16 January to the 20th. So for anyone watching this, please, stay at home if you can. Just be careful. Don't ever assume this can't happen to you, because, none of us expected this would happen to Capitol Hill. Things are, no one expects the unexpected. And if anything, we know that in Trump's entire presidency has been the unexpected. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Well said. I guess my final thoughts. I wish we got into the defund the police topic, but I mean, we went on with that.
That's a whole topic on its own.
I feel like that's something totally different, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
But I kind of want to emphasize this shirt here, right? Pro-black isn't anti-white. And just
Yeah, but you're wearing a white T-shirt.
On a white T-shirt.
It could have been a brown T-shirt, traitor.
Well, he is brown, so I mean.
Hey, yeah.
He's a coconut. That's what he is.
Oh. Cancel your ass.
It's all right. I get called a coconut all the time too. That's the only reason I'm saying.
For black people, it's called Oreos, by the way.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, every culture has their own thing, which is but as I was saying before, Omar, we definitely need allies, right? For all you guys saying all lives matter, for all you guys who are self-preservationists, right? Who want to talk about I don't care about what you vote for and this and that, the argument that I have with my former teacher online. We need your help to fight this. Right? We can only win this together. So stop trying to convince people that you're not racist and how good you are and how open-minded you are, and actually show us by standing with us.
Thank you.
Right?
It isn't about you. It's not about you.
It's not about you. And look, we need you. We need your help. We need your help, right? I was gonna say only you can prevent forest fire. Only you can prevent. Only you can prevent racism.
This is what happens when a podcast goes on for an hour and a half.
Yeah. No, but look, we need your help. Stand with us, right? We don't have to be enemies, right? I appreciate you supporters. Recognize.
Yeah, I lost.
I don't know why,
audio.
but your mic is it's dead. I don't know what happens.
So happens when you buy your mic from 7-Eleven,
right?
Right next to those USB chargers, those car chargers.
It's a software engineer trying to be a hardware guy. He tried to make his own microphone. Thought he was MacGyver, I guess. I don't know. Leave the engineering to the engineers, man.
Oh, look at that. His screen froze too. Didn't even pay his internet bill.
Good timing for that. He can't even say anything back. Oh, poor bastard, man. Quick, yeah, I don't have too much to say, but there's a reason why this podcast works, right? We're all from different backgrounds. We all have different customs and cultures and everything like that. So, for everybody out there, man, you don't have to agree with our views. We don't have to agree with your views, but we do have to respect each other, and we just need to remember that and just conduct ourselves and expect a little human decency from one another. Just because we think differently doesn't mean that I have to hate you or I have to fight you. It just means that we have to find some sort of common ground so we can all just try to live together, the way that God intended, man. So stay open-minded, and wish all the best to y'all. Y'all good?
Well said.
All right.
All right. Good night.